My guest for the remainder of this hour is Tracy Ann Mangold. Tracy is a former official with the 8th Congressional District Republican Party in Northeast Wisconsin. Tracy Ann, how are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Nice to have you here. It was prompted by an article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel on Tuesday. The headline, Tensions Over Electing a New GOP Leader Boil Over in the 8th Congressional District. And look, this is not the only place where this has happened. The Michigan Republican Party has famously gone through some turmoil. I'm sure some other county parties have gone through this as well. But the upshot, Tracy, is that you have how do we characterize this? I'll tell you how the Trump supporters characterize it as the old guard needing to be, pushed aside for a new round of leaders, but their practices, their tactics, their behavior isn't sitting well with everybody. And some folks, you included, are leaving the party as a result. Can you give us a little bit more background on what this whole dispute is about?
It roughly boils down to there's several things. We have Turning Point USA, which is a faction of Heritage Foundation that has, outraised RNC left and right. And they've been infiltrating different county parties, state level, all across the country. And even on their website, I think it's referred to as the Mount Vernon Project. They specifically say that their goal is to remove old guard Republicans from their positions in the Republican Party. That is not a good thing.
Because now they will say, well, they were too status quo, weren't getting things done, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas, Donald Trump's tactics have surely worked. But it has also led to some interesting characters moving up into leadership positions. And I'm not even talking about the Secretary of Defense,
No.
using a texting app. I'm talking how at the local level, you've got the new 8th District Republican chair, who is the chair of the Oconto County Republican Party, Ken Sikora, who is, shall we say, not being universally accepted, especially by more of the traditional Republicans in the party.
Well, the problem with Ken and with, we have a couple other counties in the 8th that are we call problem counties right now. And the issue is they don't want to follow the constitutions and the rules. So when you go into elected office, especially if you're a county chair, every county has their own constitution, right? And it behooves the chair to follow the Constitution. I mean, that's what they're for. Then we have the 8th District Constitution, then you have the state party constitution. And you defer to each constitution as questions arise, if you have a conflict or what have you. Oconto's constitution specifically says that the chair may not personally or as chair endorse a candidate for office. Okay. Ken did not follow that. He endorsed Tony Wied. He actively promoted him. Brown and Wapaka kind of follow in line with whatever Ken does. And that's a problem. And, when they try to use our 8th district logo on press releases that counties were sending, which is not protocol, it is not appropriate. We emailed them and said, you cannot use, district logos without prior authorization. And they just kind of scoffed at me and our district chair at the time and said, we can do whatever the heck we want. And when you've got that kind of mentality, they don't follow Robert's Rules of Order. There's a reason there have rules within the party. There's a reason for rules anywhere. You have to have that sort of that order. Otherwise, it's chaos. And that's what's happening right now. And you're seeing it. There's complete chaos in the 8th district. There's a lot of good counties in the 8th district. There's a lot of good people in the Republican Party. But the ones that are, overshadowing them are these trouble counties that, it's just kind of petering out of, it's rolling into out of control, basically.
Well, right. I mean, it's one thing to be, a maverick or to be a little rebellious. It's another thing to completely disregard, like you said, norms or even good behavior for that matter. So we're going to continue that conversation with Tracy Ann Mangold in just a moment. We are talking to Tracy Ann Mangold. And before we pick up that conversation, just a reminder, the Civic Media Break into Spring keyword for this hour is play. So use that Civic Media app and text the word play, Play, and you will be in the running for Brewers tickets. That's part of this hour's prize. Back with Tracy Ann Mangold now, and again, a story in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that prompts this conversation about, tension and infighting amongst a lot of Donald Trump supporters versus people who have probably been active in the party a little bit longer. From the Journal-Sentinel article, there is looking at Oconto County and now 8th District Republican Party Chair Ken Sikora, a 2018 incident in which he pleaded no contest to a charge of battering his wife, is what the newspaper article says. The spouse later said she wanted to pull back the statements, and Sikora said that it was how did he put it here? I believe a corrupt Democrat prosecutor was the reason why this is still out there. But Tracy Ann, the point remains that this is somebody that the 8th District is not unanimously behind, and it has caused some real animosity between people and has really gotten in the way of something that we talk about a lot on this show. You can be Republican, you can be Democrat, you can be fiercely independent, but are you service-minded? Do you want to serve in government, or are you just looking for fame or power or whatever the case is? And that's what I'm hearing in this story is too many people getting away from the notion of actual service. Is that an apt description?
It is. I can give you an example. My mother is Shirley Kaufman, longtime chair of Marinette County, former vice chair of the 8th District years ago when Bill Ross was chair of the 8th District. She's been involved with the Republican Party since she was 17. She's in her late 80s now. And, she's seen it all. And she's been chair of Marinette, more times than we can count. She is no longer, of course, chair. But this last week, she sent a letter of resignation into the Marinette County Republican Party and said she resigns. This is a woman who's given everything to the party. She's seen everything, blood, sweat, and tears. I was raised, on that in the politics with my mom and my grandfather, who was town of Lake chairman and veteran service officer. So service is important in my family. The people that are in it to ladder climb, that is a problem. But, it should be a big warning sign for the Republican Party when Shirley Kaufman resigns. When you've lost, when, like they said, Johnson said, when you lose Cronkite, you've lost the world. I think it's something like that. But when you lose Shirley Kaufman, that's a statement. Not one person in the Republican Party up in Marinette has commented about it, has said a word to her. It's just, I think it's emblematic of everything else that's happening.
Well, and then when you have other people on the right side of the spectrum, I'm thinking of there's a Meg Ellison who's on the radio in Wausau, Jessica McBride, who runs a conservative news website, and they say that they are just being savaged personally on air. And look, we already know the comment sections can often be a dumpster fire, but there's always, even there's some kind of a line that most people would agree you don't cross, that a lot of folks are happily crossing to make personal attacks on people with whom you're having what should be, political or organizational disagreements. And in their mind, everything's fair game. That's
why I got out. I mean, I loved being secretary. I loved preparing for caucuses. I loved talking to the people. It becomes like a family, in politics, regardless what party you're in, people. So it wasn't an easy decision. But it was just untenable, as I put in my resignation letter. The name calling, I was attacked verbally during a meeting because I was trying to hold people accountable. They're pitting people against other Republicans to run for office. And unless that person's a really horrible person or candidate or elected official, you don't pit your own people against each other. And that's what's happening. We're seeing it on the national level. We're seeing it on the state and local level. And there's this tone of hate. You can't even disagree with somebody. You're called names. I was called every name in the book. And we're volunteers. At the end of the day, that's all we are. We're volunteers. And that has to be nurtured and taken care of, or you're going to lose people within the party.
And that includes, again, finding room for disagreement. We've said many a time here that I actually want to go back to fighting with Lynn Cheney or Liz
Yeah.
Cheney and with other Republicans, because the things that we fight about are tax policy, for example, or trade deals or minimum wage. Now we're on the same side of something because it deals with basic democracy itself. And in this case, look, we always talk about Democrats in disarray. We joke all the time about the circular firing squad, but it's because we're having these disagreements about policy by and large, where it sure sounds to me from the outside like this is more an argument about loyalty, that you're either loyal to a fault to Donald Trump and his acolytes, and there is no room to speak up and say something like, well, even criticizing this recent text chain thing, but it just seems so much about loyalty rather than allowing for disagreements about how a Republican Party should move forward on policy and ideas.
Right. And they're cannibalizing each other. I mean, if you saw, the back and forth, Kurt Johnson, the chair up in Kewaunee County, is an excellent person. He was one of the only ones to defend me when I was being attacked within the party. He worked Capitol Hill. He's no shrinking violet, and they just came after him, but he can hold his own. We need more people like that to stand up against this status quo. Ken is supported by Joe Gigante. He's supported by a lot of people. Tony Wied, of course. And Tony Wied is not making friends with some of the counties up there. I'm hearing hearsay that he's being uninvited from Lincoln Day dinners because of his stance of support for Ken and Joel and Brown County.
I was just going to ask you about that. If what we're hearing is that the congressman is not being invited to some of his own county party dinners, which should tell you where, again, a congressman could play a role as a peacemaker in all this, or could simply be leading the charge to drive out good people. Tracy Ann Mangold is the former treasurer for the 8th District Republican Party. Secretary, I'm sorry. Tracy Ann, thank you so much. We appreciate the visit. All right, take care now.
I appreciate it. You have a good day.